Okay, class. So this is kind of what we looked at in class today, and we're then going to try to take this idea and then write a small program to take some Celsius input from the user and then return a Fahrenheit value, right? So I just kind of want to show you how I'd be going through this. I think a lot of this at this stage might be just mechanical stuff like creating a new class and getting that class to run. I saw some issues with that. As well as just design and like how we're going to go about attacking this problem, right? So I just want to show you like the way I would think about approaching this. First of all, for me, I always like viewing this Project Explorer. Some people had this closed. If you had it closed, to me, you can just slide over here in the search and type Package Explorer, double click on it, I think, and you get this window back again. So you need to go somewhere inside one of your projects into the source folder. You don't have to have a package there, but if you don't, then it kind of creates a default package or something like that. So I have something called scanner fun. So I'm going to right click on the package and go new class. Okay, and I'm going to call this class Fahrenheit. Now classes should be named with capital letters. Okay, so I'm going to call it Fahrenheit, and I'm going to click public static void main, and we're going to finish this thing, and it looks like I'm good to go. Okay. Okay. So here we go. So we want to get input from the user. And so today we looked at something called a scanner object, right? A scanner object, which belongs to the scanner class. There's like a little video on our agenda page as well as a link to the Java API. Okay. But I really think if you watched what we did in class, you should have some idea about how to create this object, the scanner object. So when you create a new object, you use the keyword new, indicating we're going to create a new object that we need a new location memory for this. And so we're going to say new scanner, right? It's a scanner object. And we need to put an argument in there, and the argument we're going to use is system.in. It's the only argument we're ever going to use in this class. And to be honest, without knowing exactly what that means, I think it means that we're taking input from the keyboard. That's my guess. Or that is the system.in essentially for us, is whatever's typed in the keyboard, right? Okay, so I got a couple problems here. Got a couple problems already. I mean, this thing's already yelling at me. So let's come over here and click on this thing, and it says, oh, you need to import the scanner package. Oh, okay, I got you. So let's go ahead and just double click on it, right? And then it gets in there on line 3. You don't have to type it in. You don't have to remember exactly what it is. So I think a lot of times when you're using different packages and stuff like that, you don't have to remember exactly what they are. You can just create the objects, and then Eclipse is going to help you, and you can just double click it. It's a little simpler that way. Now here we go. So we have this scanner object, and if we run this program, it'll kind of give me the ability to actually no, it won't give me the ability to type something because I haven't used that command yet. But the problem is this object, although it's created, isn't we don't have the ability to reference it. I have the ability to reference this object, right? And so what we need is a variable, right? A variable which points to the object and allows us to reference this object. Okay. So what we're going to do is create a variable. Oh, excuse me. What did I do? We're going to create a variable, right? Now the question is, what type of variable are we going to create? Is it an int? Is it a double? No, it's a scanner, right? This is a scanner object. We need a scanner variable, right? And you can call this whatever you want. It's always good to use descriptive names. I've seen this called a bunch of different things. Scan, reader, keyboard are all fairly good, sort of. Let's call it keyboard since we're getting input from the keyboard. How about that? Okay. All right. So here's what we've done on line 8. We have created over here. We have created a scanner object. Okay. And we now have a way to reference it in this keyboard variable, which is of type scanner, right? Okay, now in Python, we could just use the input function. The input function allowed us to put a message in it, which displayed to the user. That doesn't work that way in Java. But in Java, we do have a way to display a message to the user, and that's with the system.out.print command. And again, we're actually using the system.out object here. So here we go. All I needed you to show, right? All I needed you to show was this. That was it, just a little up C kind of prompt, and then the user is going to type something in. Okay, and this I think I would stop right here. I think I would stop right here. I mean, I could have stopped after the first line, except there really would have been a lot to show for that. But I want to stop and I want to run this thing. I don't want to go any farther before I run this thing. And I'm excited because C shows up, and that's kind of what I was hoping would show up. And that's it. Is it going to allow me to type something in here? No, it's not going to allow me to type anything in. Okay, well, it's not allowing me to type anything in because I haven't asked that scanner object to go get me anything yet, right? And the way we ask the scanner object to go get something is we use one of the next commands. And so we're going to tell our scanner object keyboard here to use one of the next commands. Now we said next, and you can see it right here as it shows up. Next is a string, right? So we don't really want a string because we want to take an integer, right? We want to take an integer. And so if you look down here at the bottom, next int takes an integer value, and that's what we're looking for. And again, we did talk about that in class. So now if I run this thing, interestingly enough, it is going to allow me to type something in, and great. So I got to type in 100. So then the question is, well, how do I reference that 100, right? I mean, I want to do something with it. I want to do some math that I want to get Fahrenheit value, right? Well, right now I'm not holding on to the value anywhere. Right? This is kind of from last year, but we hold on to values with variables, right? So although we were able to collect that that integer, right, with line 10 there, keyboard dot next in, we're not holding on to it anywhere, right? So we got to create a variable to hold on to it. So let's do something here like int Celsius, and we'll have it equal the value that we collect from that keyboard scanner, right? Now, a couple things. One thing is, if you did look at the problem set description, the input was not on the next line. It was not in the next line. So that's an interesting idea, and so we could fix that by using the print statement instead of print line. So let's do this again. Let's see what happens here. Now, this is a little different, I will say, than Python, because in Python, if I ran this, right, and hit 100, then in the shell, even though I'm not showing Celsius anymore, I'm not printing out the value of Celsius, in the shell, I could type the variable name Celsius, and the value would come back to me. Well, Java doesn't really have a way to do that. It might show up over here on the variables thing. We'll see. But let's see. I think there is a way to make that happen. But so for us, and this is where for me, especially in Java, like I'm printing stuff out all the time. Especially with a longer program, like things are going wrong, what's happening, using that print statement all the time. And it's a great way to sort of build your programs too, and just build a skill and just say, hey, what is the value of that variable right now? Is it the value I expect it to be? And there's no reason it isn't or shouldn't be, but you might want to check, right? And sure enough, it is the value we expect. Okay, cool. Well, we had some math involved. I think it was on the board. It said something like, by the way, I could leave that in there in case I wanted to check it later or something, by just comment it out. So we want to create a double value, which is a Fahrenheit, which is going to be the Fahrenheit temperature. And we had this formula that looks something like, well, it said F equals, but something like C times 9 divided by 5 plus 32. All in parentheses, something like this, right? Now here's what's interesting. Okay, couple things. So I'm getting an error message. What's the error message? What's C? Well, C stands for the temperature in Celsius, right? Oh, well, I in my program have not created a variable called C which holds that value, but I do have a variable called Celsius. So let's use that. Celsius. That's what I'm really referencing. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay. How we doing? How we doing? Pretty good? Okay. And now let's do this thing here and see what value we get for Fahrenheit when we print this thing out. All right, no error messages. Let's run it. So we go 100, 212. This is what was a little deceptive. We didn't want to print a message which was just like F indicating Fahrenheit here. All good, all good. So, you know, if you run this, it does look exactly like the example, right? It's exactly what the example looks like. And it'd be tempting to think you have this thing figured out. I happen to know there's a little issue with this, So let's run this again, but let's try a value like 57, which should give us something which has a decimal value other than 0. But it's giving us a decimal value with 0. In fact, you could try a bunch of things, you know, and what you find is you always get one or something that ends with 0, right? And the reason why is the way this thing is set up is this right side over here is actually going to evaluate like an integer. And therefore, you can say, you know, double Fahrenheit equals 5. It's just going to treat it like 5.0 going forward. But it's not giving you that decimal, what is the word, accuracy, you know, right, that you're looking for. It's cutting that decimal accuracy off. It's truncating that decimal accuracy. There's a bunch of ways you can attack this thing. Because, I mean, the problem is, because when you have an integer divided by an integer, that's a big problem right there. I mean, first of all, 9 divided by 5 is not going to be 1.4, right? I'm sorry, 1.8. It's going to be 1. It's going to be 1 because it truncates at the decimal, right? So it's going to be 1. Couple ways you could deal with this, and then you're going to end up multiplying integer times integer, also getting an integer back. If I'm not mistaken. I might have to, let me, yeah, I'm pretty sure integer. I don't know, let's just try real quick. I can't remember. Let's go 5 times 20. And we'll know that this is true because it won't say like 0.0 or something. Yeah, pretty sure integer is integer. Now, if you mix in a double, then it's going to give us a double back. And I'm pretty sure the same thing with multiplication. So if I say like something like 5.0, now it's going to give me 100.0 back, right? So bottom line is, you know, if you take the 9 divided by 5 and you turn one of those guys into a double, now this whole expression here is going to value as a double. And then I'm going to multiply a double times an integer, still returns a double, right? And then I'm going to add 32. So then I'm essentially going to keep the that accuracy, that decimal accuracy. So here we go again. So 50, let's try 57. And sure enough, last time remember we got 134.0. This time we get 134.6. And also you can see that when I multiply the float times the int, I get a float back, right? Been a while since I've done this kind of little mechanical stuff, but that was my recollection. Is that when you mix values like double, int, you get a double return. But if you have int, you're going to get an int return, which could cause some unexpected results. Okay. So, anywho's, I feel like this becomes a pretty nice solution right there. Pretty nice solution. All right. Any questions? Please let me know.